Welcome back to Straight No Chaser, serving talk radio your way.
Yeah, run up.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Chevy John don't come for you?
Welcome back to Straight No Chaser. I'm sitting here today with Pastor C and Miss Susan, and we're in a very good discussion. Policing in America. Does everyone feel respected and protected? And we're going to go to a couple of callers in just a second, but I just wanted to share some comments from some of our friends who are listening from the East Coast that had some comments about our discussion. And Mr. Ron Hankins had some thoughts, and he says he would respectfully disagree, and he thinks that there is still respect for the law enforcement community, for most of the community, but there are areas of the community that still struggle, and I agree with that. That's from Dr. Hankins from Trinity Presbyterian in Baltimore, and who has been a real community advocate, who has been working in the trenches for many years in the Walbrook Junction area of Baltimore, that has been plagued with the normal signs of grief, drug addiction, high crime, poor achievement, all those ingredients that are recipes for a challenged community. So thank you, Reverend Hankins, for your comments. And also thank you for your comments, Ms. Ewing. We received your comments as well. I know we have a couple of callers on hold, and we're going to get to them momentarily. And part of our discussion, we were looking at policing and whether or not people are feeling respected or protected. And so when we looked at the incident in El Paso, which was the first part of our discussion, Pastor C, I want to talk about an incident that happened in your hometown in Chicago. And so our engineer, Mr. Norwood's going to cue that up for us. And in this particular situation, this young lady had a permit to have a picnic in the park, and this gentleman was harassing her because she had a Puerto Rico flag T-shirt on. And so let's hear a little bit of that if you can cue that up for us, Marvin.
Go on it.
You're not going to change us. You know that?
I'm not trying to change anyone. I'm just trying to come here for a birthday party.
You're not going to change the United States of America.
Okay.
Period.
Okay.
You should not be wearing that in the United States of America.
Okay.
Are you a citizen?
Yes, I am a
Are you a
citizen.
United States citizen?
Can you please get away from me?
Then you should not be
Can
wearing
you
that.
please get away from
You should
me?
be wearing the United States of America.
Officer, I feel
Not
highly
Puerto Rico.
uncomfortable. Can
Are
you
you a
please
citizen?
grab him?
Are you an American citizen?
Please, officer.
I'm an American citizen. I would like to know, is she an American citizen? Why is she wearing that?
As you can see, the police are he's not even grabbing him. Like this guy's just...
And in this incident, and as you heard as we were fading out, the young lady who had the permit to have the picnic was, from the looks of the tape that we saw, was being harassed by this gentleman that was asking her, is she an American citizen? He didn't appreciate the fact that she had on a Puerto Rican flag on her T-shirt, insinuating that she wasn't from America. So we have a couple of forms of miseducation here. I'll put it mildly, but since it's straight no chaser, that's just downright ignorant.
Right.
Okay, so let's put that out on the table. And then there was a concern that she was asking the officer for assistance, and the officer did not engage. Now, out of fairness to the Park Service, they have subsequently done an investigation and charged this young man. But the concern throughout the community, and this video too has gone viral, just like the El Paso incident, is, okay, this guy is clearly harassing this lady. I mean, he's all into her personal space and that stuff, and the officer didn't engage. So again, does the community feel protected, or do they feel respected?
And I would say, again, that it is situations like this that are being publicized to me that have a greater influence in the eyes of the people to sway them to a place where there is no respect for law enforcement. I'm not saying that everybody does not respect law enforcement, but when you continually on a consistent basis see misconduct like this, it has the ability to cause you not to have any honor or respect or feel as if you are being protected by law enforcement. And so here's my challenge, Chief, because your average young African American student or child or whatever, when you talk to these young people, they do not feel protected or respected by law enforcement. And some of them have not even received or had any interaction with the police officers. So where does that come from? It comes from YouTube. It comes from television, and it has developed a mindset. And they are prejudging law enforcement, saying that what happened to them is going to happen to me. And so, I don't feel that people, and I'm not saying everybody, but there is a large amount of individuals who do not feel respected and protected by law enforcement today. And I feel with social media and camera phones, this will escalate and become worse if we do not do something about officers who do have misconduct experience and there is no type of reprimand. Well, what do you think, Miss Susan?
I'm totally there. I'm with you. I mean, heck, I lived with a law enforcement person, and I feel that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm there.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because and one of the other comments that we received again from Ms. Blyther, and she wanted to make the point that we cannot overlook the fact that not only is there a perception of white officers disrespecting folks in the minority community, but you also have African American officers
I totally agree.
who are disrespecting African American citizens as well. And again, keeping it straight, no chaser, that is a concern.
Sure.
And regardless of the officer's race or political leanings or sexual orientation, there is no gray area about you have to treat people with respect, period. Yes, you are going to run into people that don't respect the badge. They don't respect authority. Heck, you had the folks out here in Nevada that believe that the government is their enemy. How dare you come on my property? Those guys that had all those issues with all the guns. So you have that feeling on both sides of the racial divide. Mm-hmm. And so even with those folks who have those ideas, there was still a certain degree of discretion that was used. They didn't just run in there and rush those guys with all those guns. They didn't do that. And that was a point of contention from folks in other communities. Look how many days it took before that was handled. Now, I will say that you had a lot of high-powered rifles out there, so you had some other circumstances that played into that. But again, perception is a powerful thing.
Very much
and
so.
People perceived that we're being treated one way, mm-hmm. and now you have this group out here who are white Americans that are being treated differently.
Well, didn't they get exonerated too?
Well, their cases were that was in the court system.
Right, but that all goes together. They don't see it. A lot of people don't see it separately. A lot of people see it as one big issue.
Sure, which without your permission develops somebody's truth.
Yep.
Yes, it does.
Without our permission, it develops somebody's truth, because perception is somebody's reality.
Yes, it is.
And so when you have in this age that we live in, when everything is on social media, it presents the race card. Yes, we do have African American officers and Caucasian officers, all ethnicities were represented who are unintegral, and they've done some things that dishonor the badge. However, society or technology presents it as a race issue, and we have to deal with that. So if I'm a young African American man coming up and I'm seeing all of this on television and on social media, I'm going to develop a mindset that the white police officer is after me because that's what I see. So it's not necessarily the truth. However, that's what's being presented, so it becomes somebody's truth without our permission.
Pastor Carey.
Yes, ma'am.
So I go into the dollar store one day, and this guy has an automatic weapon strapped over his shoulder and a Glock in his pants. Okay, and at first I thought, oh wow, that's kind of busted for a kid's birthday party, but to each his own. And as I walked up on the guy, white guy, I said, oh, holy moly, that's the real deal. Okay. And then I was talking to Chief Blow, and I said, now, can you imagine if I had walked into the dollar store strapped like that guy? We're talking about the real deal.
Yes.
No one did or said anything. He went through the line, and everything was cool.
Straight no chaser, right?
Straight
Absolutely.
no chaser.
Straight no chaser.
Okay.
Bring it.
Let's deal with the race issue, because when you see on television law enforcement detain an African American person in a minor crime, they throw him to the ground, beat him, handcuff him, he's bleeding, he's bloody, the whole 9 yards. And then you see a young man detained who just walked out of a church and murdered several people, and they walked him to the paddy wagon or whatever means of transportation unscathed, unharmed. How am I supposed to perceive that and not consider the race issue?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great point, Pastor C. And again, it just goes back to, you have to do the best you can to have national standards. And I mean national in terms of in the United States. There are 18,000 police departments in the United States. And as you know, even in the same state, you have folks like in Florida, the Jacksonville area, we're big on traffic stops. Down in the Miami area, hey man, what we do, we're all about trying to get guns and drugs. And so, the philosophies, the policing styles, there's a Southern style of policing, if you will, West Coast style of policing, just all kinds of different philosophies that you have out there. But when it comes to the treatment of suspects and folks involved in crime, it should be, in the perfect world, this is how you treat a guy that has been charged with robbery. You go in, you do X, Y, and Z, you cuff him, you get him in there, and you do the Law and Order SUV thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the perception is, and some of this is good that this is coming out, because through some of these controversial incidents, you have change that has occurred. And I'll look at my agency. When I first started, we were in the middle of some challenging times. And even those of us that were in the agency, we thought we were doing a good job, and we were doing a good job with a lot of things. But there were some things that we had to work on. And we worked on those things. And then about 10 years later, we were back again dealing with some issues we had to work on. But when we came out of those things, we were doing some amazing things. And I remember being so proud that one of the complaints that I was getting, Pastor C and Susan,
What's that?
One of the complaints that I was getting as a deputy chief, I was getting calls from citizens saying, hey, why are you moving Sergeant Connor out of our area? Well, it's because he got promoted. Those are the kind of complaints that I was really happy that we had, because people had ownership now in Sergeant Connor, and so it's my hope that most agencies want to have those kinds of complaints. Now, I'm sure that you may have a sheriff or a deputy chief here and there scattered out through those 18,000 agencies that don't care about